All right, welcome back. A lot is happening across the country, and of course the president is expected today to appoint, to swear in the 6 judges, and for them to hit the ground running already, and that is expected to be taking place later on in the day, and so much more. So it's a busy day for the president as he takes over office officially today. Okay, so on that note, let's cross over. I want us to talk to Kenyans in the diaspora and talk to Professor Jerono Rotich, who is in the United States of America, to get her views. But before then, Director, please. All right. Before we cross to Jerono in the States, let's just take a listen on what the president said yesterday.
We have elevated our diaspora to the 48th county. Has always been that the diaspora does not receive adequate attention and attention they deserve. The focus has been on remittances, while the fundamental rights as citizens have been neglected. To correct this oversight, I pledge to elevate diaspora to a ministry level, strengthen diaspora services in all embassies, work with Parliament to set up a committee that will exclusively deal with diaspora issues, and set up a mechanism for public participation by Kenyans living in diaspora.
Very well, and there you have her. We have Professor Jerono Rotich, who is a professor of kinesiology and associate dean for organizational climate, inclusion and belonging in the School of Public Health at the Indiana University, Bloomington. Professor, welcome to the program. The president talked about having diaspora as the 48th county. What is your take?
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much. That was great music to our ears. We've been looking forward to that. And yes, it is true that we have felt neglected. I have the privilege of serving as a president for the Kenyan Scholars and Studies Association, as well as a CEO and founder of the Kenya Students in Diaspora. I'm also on several boards, Kenya National Council of Elders, Kenya Christian Fellowship, Kenya Diaspora Association. So yes, I'm very conversant with what is going on in diaspora. And yes, it was very true that we have always felt like we are left out. You know, with my job where I work with the community to make sure that everybody's included and belongs, that is not the feeling that we have received from our Kenyan government. So this was great news today to hear that our president, and by the way, congratulations to His Excellency, President Oloo and his deputy, and we are so proud of his accomplishments. So we look forward to this elevation of the diaspora to a 48th county. We look forward to more services, because some of the issues that we've been having is we have a lot of especially with services from the ministries, from the embassies, and a lot of them, I think it's because of the funding that they receive. So I am very close to the DC area in New York. So they're doing their best, but it's just that they don't have the support that they need. So this is great that they will provide resources for those embassies so that they can better serve Kenyans. In terms of addressing issues, having a ministry, that is great, because like I said, diaspora is very, very broad. And remember that diaspora, we are very vibrant constituency, that we should not be ignored. We are the best. There is no greater person than the diaspora, Kenyans in diaspora, who can actually promote Kenya's interests, who can market our country, who can, we are ambassadors of Kenya. So this investment in us is great. We have the engine that can transform our country. We have resources, we have skills, we have talents that have not been harvested. We have brain drain. How can we harvest that so that we have more of us coming? So that was wonderful news, and we hope that it will continue to work with us. We set up mechanisms for participation by diaspora. Like I said, I'll give an example. Most of us scholars, we have been coming to Kenya through a Carnegie Fellowship. I was in Kenya the last 2 summers at the University of Nairobi. Most of us were working on curriculums, development, training. Most of us actually worked on CBC. I know CBC is another headache that has not been resolved. And by the way, CBC is a curriculum system. So we are very, very conversant. We are available to help. We are willing to assist. It's just that people ignore the diaspora. So we have free resources here. We have free talents that we can offer every support that we need. We just concluded our 14th annual KESA conference, Kenya Scholars and Association, where we had many students, many scholars, and that was the same conversation we had with the CS, the peers of education, who was able to join us virtually, as well as our ambassador, and we were having the same discussions as to what is it that we as diaspora can do. We want to help. We want to build our nation. We are so dedicated, but we just, people is just bringing money, which we will continue to do that. But how can we participate? If you look at the other day, something that you forgot is the IABC, where many people are not able to vote because the distances are so far. So I just want to again emphasize that this is a great need. Hope and pray that they'll follow through with that, because we need avenues for support. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of challenges that we have as a diaspora. For example, most recently, the issue that we've been dealing with is students are having challenges getting visas. So I just don't want them to deal with Kenyan embassies, but also to work with other countries. For example, the US, there's such a backlog of visas. Our students are getting all these scholarships, but they are not able to travel. They're not able to get visas on time. So therefore, we are losing students. Many of us have connections. We want to collaborate. For example, the institution that I am at, Indiana Bloomington, we've had a long time.
Prof, just hang on there. Prof, just hang on there. Don't go away. Yeah. I know it's a bit late right now and you want to go to bed. But let me come back to studio and ask you this question, Edward. You've heard what Prof is saying, but there's that issue of where do we define diaspora and to make it at the 48th county?
Yes, and I think that will fall on the legal team that the president will put together from the AG and Parliament largely to look at the parameters on how this will be engaged, because there is an issue to do with geography. Do we look at diaspora in terms of those who are immediately out of the country? For example, those ones who are within the East Africa community, and are their issues addressed at the East Africa community? The issues of those who are in South Africa now going to be addressed at the COMESA level, or the other regional blocks that we have and are part of? Or are we saying that it's only diaspora and it's now excessively, out of, Africa per se? And what about the other countries which we are opening new missions and diplomatic presence, Then there's also the issue to do with, what is the scope of engagement?
Yes.
Are we looking at it and saying it's going to be a fair basis? Because if you are in Kuwait and you're in Saudi Arabia and you're a house girl there, are you going to be given the same level of attention as someone who is actually remitting, some level of income from Australia or from, UK or US? But most importantly, and what Prof has said that I think needs urgent attention, is the discriminatory visa regime that we have seen Kenyans being accustomed to other countries, and Kenya is not reciprocating the same.
There's a serious delay in the process.
Ideally, you expect reciprocity between countries, so that the same level of requirements a country is putting is the same level of requirements they're getting. So we are seeing a very big imbalance in that kind of engagement, whereby Kenyans going to a particular country, you have some countries which even demand almost close to 21 requirements. But when those citizens of those countries are coming to Kenya, it is almost a drop in the ocean. And we're asking, I think, the new appointed CS of Foreign Affairs needs to look at that issue in terms of dignity of Kenyans at the visa level. And number two, also, even for trade, and Tobias is here, I will tell you, I mean, what is the incentives that Kenyans are given, vis-a-vis what foreign investors are given?
Yes.
And so those are the issues that we're looking at, that space has to provide a level of dignity and a level of also justice and equity. And most importantly, now to capacitate our embassies. We don't need to be raising money to get our girls back from Saudi Arabia every now and then. I think that needs to be addressed very well in that space, especially in Middle East. And that is something which the Foreign Affairs Ministry, Parliament, and Ministry of Labor needs to look at and say, how are we going to provide dignity for our children?
Before I come back to Tobias, let me just get back to Prof again. Prof, Kenyans in the diaspora play a key role in terms of remittances, something that we all are aware of. And that figure sometimes can go up or drop depending on the situation on the ground. But then, how is Kenya being perceived out there now that elections are over and we have got a new president in office? Prof, my question to you is, what is the stand of Kenya globally now that we are through with the elections and we have got new regime in place already? All right, I think we are getting back to Prof in the States shortly. Tobias, the issue of remittance, and this is a very big issue, which really, sometimes you look at those figures. It's either depending on the situation, either the dollar rate or the stability in a particular country, for example, Kenya or those other countries. How is it going to be that the manufacturing aspect and Kenyans in the diaspora, how are you going to have that, how are you going to gel to bring that collegiality in terms of the productivity, in terms of remittance, and the general productivity in service delivery in country, in Kenya?
I must say, I think the president's economic team must have reviewed and assessed and saw the remittance that is coming from the diaspora, and they thought it wise that we need to establish mechanism where we address the needs of this diaspora citizen. But in terms of linking the diaspora citizen and the manufacturing sector, one of the things we want to encourage and promote is investment in the manufacturing sector. An investment could be direct investment in the manufacturing sector, where we inform them and we are able to show them what they can produce or what they can manufacture here, indirectly or directly. So most of them I know will do indirect investment in terms of shares and bonds in specific manufacturing plant, and we want to encourage that where we've seen a manufacturing plant that is company that is doing well and they're listing themselves in the NSC in terms of buying shares and investing in it, we encourage the diaspora to invest in our local manufacturers. Okay.
Edward, is there a magic wand or that magic rod that the president will have to use quick fixes in his administration within 100 days so that we can go back and say, okay, here we are. 100 days later, this is the result?
Yes, I think the president has that capacity. He's been in parliament for over 10 years. He's been in cabinet, for over 10 years, so he's not a stranger in these spaces. Yes. He has historical memory, and you talk to those close to him, they will tell you he has an acute understanding of the policy gaps that are there, and he has the wherewithal, to actually effect a number of changes. What I think will be important is the team that will come to him and support him, because we have seen situations whereby you have a president who has a lot of goodwill, but the delivery and execution tends to have a problem. And because the president has an oversight of other issues, you'll find that at the implementation level there are challenges and blockages. And so that's why we pray for wisdom, that he will have a team that will be able to carry his vision, carry his charisma and his energy, and realize that there is a lot at stake. For a president who is coming in at that age, in a continent whereby the average age of presidents is almost 20 years above him, there's a lot at stake for him to give confidence that actually it can be done. And it's not about an age issue. It is about an execution issue. And I think looking at the kind of campaign that he's actually executed and coming towards his victory, we hope that we can be able to benefit, the country will benefit from that level of precision and strategic thinking. And we hope that also he's able now to rally his troops, because he also has a sizable, victory in parliament. And that is important, because all these things that he's putting in his manifesto will require working in terms of parliament. Yeah, and ensuring that the House committees are able to analyze those bills, encourage public participation, and ensure that public participation is not just an endorsement for passing. It's about also getting views and enriching that legal document and the act, so that when it's coming out, it is richer. And so I think the kind of coordination he'll have with the chairs of the various committees in Parliament, and also working together with the and the various state agencies to ensure that there is a cohesion and one team. It is one team, it is one fight, it is one Kenya, it is one victory.
Somebody said that it's going to be a bit difficult for you to work in President Ruto's regime, because he's an early riser and he's an achiever, an ambitious gentleman. So if you are in that cabinet, be ready. All right, so let's cross over back to the United States, and Prof is still there. Prof, before we lost it there, the question is, what is the Kenya's national or international standing now that we have got a new regime in office?
Can you repeat that again?
What is the Kenya's image out there? We had a peaceful transition of power yesterday, and we have got a new office bearer. What is the image of Kenya globally?
No, it is wonderful. What our people have done is impressive. All we can do is celebrate. You have set the bar very high, and we are proud of each and every person. So we just hope that, we've been watching, we've been praying, and everybody has been following. So again, kudos to our wonderful people of Kenya, to our leaders, to every participant, every contestant. You have done an amazing job. The young people together, and we're also doing it together here in Diaspora. We're working together as a community, and we are coming together and realizing. In fact, our theme at the KESA conference was professionalism and moving our country forward, because we knew that as we met last week, that was a very tough time. There were a lot of tensions, but we were able to maturely come together as scholars and students and to say, hey, we need all hands on deck. We need everybody on board, and we are ready to roll. And so this was good news when His Excellency shared today that he is ready to bring us on board. In fact, if you look at Diaspora social media platforms, that is the entire conversation that is going on as to how are we going to be engaged? How are we going to be involved? So yes, we continue to be ambassadors in the US. We continue to be ambassadors all over Diaspora. In Africa, wherever Kenyans are, we are, like I said, we are very vibrant, we're active, we love our country, and we do whatever we can do to serve our country. We just pray that we're given those opportunities so we can bring our talents back home and contribute to nation building, because you send us abroad, right? You send us out of Kenya, you spend your monies and your time, but now we want to come back and pay forward. We want to come back and pay back. So we're just eager to serve. We're eager to work with the different entities, different governments at the county level, at the national level, with the education systems. We're here to serve. We're here to pay back.
All right. Prof, the president talked about CBC, and now that you're a professor in line of education, let's just play this clip, what the president said yesterday, and I'd love you to give me your insight based on that.
There is a robust conversation, ladies and gentlemen, in the country on education, and in particular, the implementation of CBC curriculum. Public participation is critical in this matter. I will establish an education reform task force in the presidency, which will be launched in the coming weeks. It will collect views from all players in line with the demand of public participation and we are particularly alive to the anxieties of parents on the twin transition of the last 844 class and the first CBC class in January next year. I assure all that there will be a solution to the matter before then.
Prof, the president said that he's going to form a task force in the office of the president to look into the issue of CBC. What is your take?
Yes, that is a great comment. I was actually in Kenya for 2 months in June and July. And like I said from the beginning, CBC is an American system. My kids have gone through that. Our children have gone through that. So we've been there. We've done that. We've been very involved as parents. And it just broke my heart to see what was going on in Kenya. I went to schools. I spoke Kenya High. I went to several schools and spoke to students and spoke to teachers. And I see the frustration where there's this group that is getting ready to go to college and they don't have the facilities. I have many friends who are principals, who are head teachers, who are classmates, and I visited their schools and I could see the stress. We had those conversations. So what happened is this CBC was rolled on without the stakeholders' involvement. That is a practice here in developed countries. Before you roll out any curriculum, you want to engage all the stakeholders. You want to talk to the students. You want to talk to the teachers. You want to make sure you have the resources. You want to make sure that the faculty, the teachers are trained. But in this case, it looks like that did not happen. So therefore, you're pushing kids. There are no resources. They don't have. How do you tell a kid in the village to go swimming? Yeah, I don't know if you saw the video that was going on in social media, kids just swimming on the floor. It breaks my heart to see that we are not preparing these children to succeed. We're not preparing all children to succeed. So I'm really excited to hear that. Like again, I said, most of our faculty, most of our Kenya Diaspora scholars, we were in Kenya in the summer to work with institutions that needed help. We some of us trained with help to teachers in professional development, preparing them. So this is what should have been done from the beginning. So we welcome this and I applaud His Excellency President for doing what should have been done. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's our children who are suffering, and it's no wonder most of this government officials, these big people, they have their children are not in the CBC system. Their children are in the American system. Their children are in the British system. Why? Because this system is not functional. So therefore, it needs to be fixed because our children suffer. Our teachers are not prepared. They don't have the resources. So this is a big time. There's a big need. And like I said, the diaspora, we are ready to help. You call me, like I said, I'm the president of the Kenya Scholars Studies Association. You call me and tell me you need somebody in chemistry and physics, I will get you that person right now. We have our organization. We're very tight. We've been in place for 15 years. So we are ready to help. We have our students who can come back to Kenya as interns. We have worked with the ministry. We have worked with HOPE to see how we can develop internship opportunities so that our students can come back to Kenya in the summer and help and assist. We have submitted a proposal called the Kenya Diaspora Fellowship that is a replica of the Carnegie Fellowship that we actually submitted it to His Excellency President Uhuru, but they did not budget it. The same issues with the students who need help loans. So yes, we are here. We are here to be a solution. We welcome that is needed. We are first-hand experience with CBC here in the United States. I've been here for 22 years and I know exactly how it should work.
All right. Professor Jerono Rotich, thank you so much for talking to us all the way from the United States of America. We value your insights and hope that you'll come back home and give us your opinion. Kongoi, is that what you say? Yes. Or if
I'll come tomorrow if I get. I will. All of us will come back tomorrow if you need. Not just me, but all of us. We want to help. Right. We want to build our.
Karibu, rudi nyumbani.
We'll sing.
Thank you. All right. That is Professor Jerono all the way from the United States. She's also giving us an idea on what's. Let me get to your point, Tobias. She's talked about the issue of CBC. Where the president said that there's that committee that is going to be formed in the office of the president to look into it, and because there's that transition bit, coming in early January next year, something has to be done.
Correct. And I must say the president did not just speak about CBC for the sake of it. When they were doing campaigns, they moved from one county, one district to district, holding meetings with the citizen. And one of the feedback was on this CBC. And therefore it is wise of him to create an education reform tax.
Do you think it should be disbanded?
No, not disbanded, but it should be reviewed in terms of how can we implement it in this context of our country. Because if you look at it currently, the issues that are being raised about the cost of CBC, the fees the parents are paying, the books the parents are buying, the infrastructure for the CBC. A student in Nairobi doing the same course and doing the same activities related to CBC cannot be compared to a student probably in a remote village in Turkana. So it is unfair in that context. The issues of teacher-student ratio also needs to be addressed critically. The issue of the capacity of even the teachers to adopt and implement the CBC needs to be addressed. There's also the issue of funding. Funding for the schools to implement CBC. We've also had a case where publishers who have published books for CBC have not been paid.
Oh my God.
Almost 4 billion is pending in terms of payment to the publishers. So there's a lot of needs to be addressed for CBC to work, and I think the president was wise to say that he's come up with the tax.
Before we continue, Edward, let's take a break. My director is asking, why is it that anytime you go for a break, it's on your turn? He doesn't understand why, but anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, Edward, you're also going to chime in on that bit. But one important thing that we should not miss: over 20 heads of state were present yesterday. I know this is something quite close to Edward's heart on international matters and what Kenya has to achieve and benefit from that. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. All right, welcome back. Edward, before we took a break, it was still the issue of CBC and the diaspora, engagements and contribution to the country. Let me just get your voice on the issue of CBC. We all went through the 844 system, but it seems that a majority of Kenyans, from grandparents to fathers to everybody, is back to class together with their kids. CBC.
I think my thinking is that we need to really critically have a conversation in the country around the philosophy around education. And the philosophy around education needs to be anchored on a number of realities based on where we are as a country. One of the issues that for me I find a challenge is as the Prof said, the contestation between resources for a curriculum and a new system vis-a-vis the readiness that we had. So you want to roll out a new curriculum, you've not been able to bring the teachers up to speed, you've not been able to conscientize the learners on what is requirement, and it's just rolling out for the sake of rolling out. But also, most importantly, look at this conversation around pathways on CBC. And you're saying, for example, sports pathway. And look at how much we're investing in our sports. How many athletes are leaving the country, going outside there to other countries and taking citizenship of other countries because they are frustrated. Look at the case that happened with Omanyala being frustrated, Is that incentive enough for you to be actually a sports person in this country? They're saying that there's a sports talent direction.
Yes.
But look at what happens in the practical. Look at our musicians and the kind of frustrations they get in terms of getting their royalties. And you're saying here in CBC we'll give a pathway for music and talent. And our artists who are, for example, in the performing arts space, and how they have to compete with other artists in other countries because they're not getting the level of support from the country. Theaters have been taken over. Social halls are no longer there.
Yeah.
So what pathway are we preparing these people for when the country is not yet ready to sort out that space? And that is the challenge in terms of creating and pegging a curriculum when the infrastructure is not yet ready. And that's why you will go to what the Prof is saying, brain drain will happen, because parents who feel frustrated will take their children to other curriculums.
Yeah.
But then what happens to those parents who are not able to have a switch? And so I think I laud the president for making it an opportunity for public participation. But I think it is more than just the transition. It is also to do with the philosophy that we are trying to bring out in terms of who are we educating, and is the country ready to absorb that person when they come out?
Yeah.
That is for me very important. Otherwise we will have very many frustrated people because they say, I pursued this pathway, but the country is not yet ready for me.
Yes.
And that is what we're going to have, more frustrated people, because you first of all go through a curriculum that has been implemented not in a good way, but at the same time the end goal or the final exit is not yet well organized to receive you. Yet the promise initially was that CBC will address these challenges. Because you're saying that, okay, it will churn out innovators and entrepreneurs, but how much are we putting in terms of innovation? In terms of the country, how much support are we putting to our entrepreneurs? So those are the dynamics. I think we need to look at it from an end-to-end perspective, and not just the immediate.
All right. Well, let's cross over to Washington Ogaga, who is in the United Kingdom, to give us his insight as well as a Kenyan living in the diaspora. He's a Kenyan by birth, by right, and everything else, but now he is out there. Washington, good morning. I don't know what's the time right now in the UK. First of all, I know the entire London is mourning. What is your take on what happened yesterday, Washington?
Good morning. I'm speaking to you from Greenwich, London. That is the home of the Greenwich Mean Time. If you know where longitude 0 lies, that is where I am at the moment. It is actually 6:39. So
6:39, right.
You are 2 hours ahead, and that is summertime. I will quickly start by congratulating Kenyans for actually conducting themselves with the decorum during the elections, with the tolerance and the patience that they had, even as the results took a bit of time to come out. And also to congratulate the new president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua. Again, like you rightly mentioned, that we are in a period of mourning. We are mourning Her Majesty the Queen of England. But the good thing is we already have a king in place. So really nothing is lost. But I will quickly go to the point. Now the president has a lot of stuff to do. His in tray is definitely full. I'm sure he is well aware of that, because Kenyans are desperately in need. As a diasporian, or as somebody who lives in diaspora, we have a lot of expectations. I'm sure it might not be met right now, but some of the things that we expect this government to do for us, or to do on our behalf, is to ensure that at least we have a voice, or rather representation. It may not be something that, it may not be a quick fix. I know, because we are widespread all over the world. Like we are quite a number of us in the United Kingdom. We have so many others in the US. We also have quite a number in the continent, I mean Europe, and also other parts of the world. So representation may not be very easy to quite achieve. But somehow, if we engage like we now do, we can come up with a quick way of getting the best or the most effective way to, to have us represented and our voices heard. We are very resourceful in terms of ideas, and for that reason, if his government is seriously wants to involve us, then we can pump in practical ideas that will help them in even job creation, even at micro scale or at micro levels in the devolved units. The other thing that I would request that government, or what I expect of them, is that they should have or give an enabling environment for the devolved units or for the local governments to work with us in the diaspora without red tapes. I mean bureaucracy.
Yes.
Because you will find sometimes we have resources that are probably donated, for example, to those units directly.
Yes, and in fact, Washington, if I got it right, the president said that he's going to form a ministry to look into the issue of diaspora.
Yes, I think that's a very good first step, and hopefully, because if I can delve into that, we've always had a lot of challenges when it comes to us diasporans investing at home. Reason being that a lot of times we are taken advantage of, especially when we are doing things from far. And it is important that he is recognized that, because the remittances that we send home is quite a good chunk. It's about nearly 40 billion, according to the 2020 reports that came up. So that is a good chunk. It's almost I would call it almost GDP of given devolved units, or rather governments like Busia, for example. In 2020, if you sum up what they got from 2013 all the way to 2020, what we are remitting, which is 40 billion, it's equivalent to that. So it's quite something. So if they manage to come up with a ministry that is responsible for taking care of our needs or our concerns, then I think that would be great. We are yet to see that, and really we would want to engage with this government so that we can see how to make that ministry function.
Okay, Washington, you once ran for a political Homa Bay town, and so by all means you are a politician and you understand the Kenyan politics pretty well. So what should be the balance of trade between Kenya and the UK, and politically speaking, how would you strike the balance between trade between these two countries and politics?
The relationship between the United Kingdom and Kenya is a special one. As you know, we are one of the most important economies in East and Central Africa. And being that we are former colonies of United Kingdom and also trade partners,
yes,
it is key that we ensure that relationship continues. We know that we are in a world that is changing very fast, and that sometimes it's forcing them to look east. But it is also very important that we ensure that the trade between us and Kenya is maintained. So Kenya is important, especially in like now, the way it's positioning itself. You can see a number of countries joining in the bloc of the East African community. For example, Congo, which is quite rich in minerals. And because they've been in solitude it's been exploited a lot. We don't want to name countries that are doing that, but we know very well that some of us who are actually, in our little ways, we've been trying to reach out to the government of the United Kingdom to look for ways of working around the kind of exploitation that is going on in some of those countries. And when we realized that DRC, for example, is joining East African Community, which I thought was a job well done by the outgoing president, President Kenyatta, to incorporate, to work and incorporate them, that was one way of helping them or to reduce the exploitation so that those minerals can be processed at source. And that one in itself is adding value before they are finally sold. But if they are sold when they are still raw or rather taken as they are, then whatever goes down or trickles down to people who are working hard in those mines, for example, is not worthwhile. So this is where Britain comes in, because as they are, they posture themselves as a country that is now, above board, and is working so hard to ensure that those imperialist kind of the attitude that they had is now different, but is relating to countries like Kenya as equals, and that is something that we need to exploit. I don't know if I'm hitting your point as you expected, but I'm sure you can catch my drift.
30 seconds before I let you go. The same question I asked. Yeah, the same question I asked Professor in the United States. So, what is the Kenya's image globally after the election?
Oh yes, I can tell you that the elections, according to the way people look at Kenya from here, Kenya has proven itself as a country that can conduct itself properly during elections. As you know, most of the time, the media, especially the foreign media, a lot of the times they would associate it with the violence and activities that are not quite civilized. The way we conducted ourselves in the elections was very mature, and it has proven to them that we can do better. So for that reason, it is highly respected. So we can walk with our heads high that we have a country that is, because democracy is something that is maturing. It is never completely mature. So because even in the developed world, they still have challenges. But what we exhibited in Kenya during the last elections, the way we conducted ourselves, the tolerance and the patience that we had, even when those challenges were there, is showing that we've actually come of age, and it's put us at a very high pedestal in East Africa. I don't think that there is any other country, probably Ghana. So we are at that high level at the international stage. So we really need to keep up, and also ask the agencies, or rather the government agencies concerned, to maintain that. And we would also request the government also to ensure that those agencies or those government bodies are actually as independent as possible going forward.
All right. Washington Ogaga, Kenyan living the diaspora in England. Thank you so much for your time. Someone is asking me whether you still understand Luo. Do you?
I understand Luo very well.
How do you say good morning, Kenyans, from wherever you are watching from?
Madala, British, United Kingdom.
All right, Washington Ogaga, thank you so much, and please send regards to all Kenyans living in the diaspora. We miss them, and we wish you all the best. Thank you for your time.
will be in constant touch, especially on such matters.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you. All right. That is Washington Ogaga, Kenyan living in the diaspora, giving us his perspective on what we should expect moving forward, and even their voices. From what we've heard from Professor and Washington, Kenya stands a very good point. Edward, internationally speaking.
Yes, I think our rating has once again been reaffirmed. I was happy yesterday to see the chairman of the Africa Union, Musa Faki Mahamat, among the dignitaries that were in the country. There were many delegations.
What has the Aliko Dangote was in the country?
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and there were lots of delegations which came from ECOWAS, from COMESA, from SADC. Just to reaffirm Kenya's space and our position in the global space, and I see a resurgence in terms of our engagements and looking at the kind of delegations that were coming in. I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has its work cut out.
A lot of work to do.
Because they have to translate the ambitions of these delegations into workable programs and cooperation frameworks. And then now from there, move them to the respective line ministries to ensure now they are executed, And I feel that it's a momentous opportunity to translate that, because our foreign policy is anchored on commercial diplomacy, and that means that we move in spaces of bilateral trade talks. We move into spaces of cooperation and working that also has economic advantages for the country. And so for me, I think this is important to see how there will be a whole of government thinking around the commercial diplomacy and the kind of trade and business incentives that we'll have, so that we do not lose our standing. And I think it's important because there are certain projects that were earmarked. For example, the opening up of and the launch of the Nairobi International Trade Center, the Nairobi International Financial Center. There are spaces which we can be able to use to grow our age as a fintech hub, as a blue economy hub, as a space for even our tourism product should be much more improved and enhanced. We cannot, with climate change and the drought situation happening, we will not just be selling green and parks that alone. We need to sell industrial parks as the next frontier.
But even after seeing all those dignitaries coming to the country, it means that there's a lot of pressure for us as a country, and it's a challenge to us moving forward, that the leaps that we've made do not go into waste.
Exactly, and that's where your accounting officers, your permanent secretaries come into play. That's where your treasury supports the ministry ambitions to deliver and to secure the gain. It's like football. You need to have your defense working together with your midfield to ensure.
Like Arsenal.
Well, I won't go there, but ideally, you want to have no kind of goals coming in, but you're scoring at that level. So your permanent secretaries, your director generals in the ministries, they will play a crucial role in ensuring that whatever ambitions and goodwill is there is translated into government policy, into give good programs, into cooperation frameworks with the local embassies that are here to enhance trade. And I'm seeing our space, and I'm keen to see how President Ruto will be addressing the Africa Union in the next Heads of State Summit coming up in January. And of course, he will start with the global stage in terms of the own coming in the next 2 weeks, the United Nations General Assembly. I'm hoping that he will be able to address the global stage at that level and set Kenya's tone in saying we are open for business and we want to be able to deliver on our commitments as a country, and we are an anchor state in this region.
Remember what President Suluhu said, that the biggest gift Kenyans give East Africa and the world at large is to have a peaceful election.
Yes, and the transition for that matter.
Okay, Tobias, before we continue, let's get to something that is quite close to your heart. The President said that the reversal of the port operations from Naivasha back to Mombasa.
Correct.
All right? Break it down for me.
So the port cargo decree has advantages and disadvantages. In one aspect of it, the initial reason why the directive was there is to enable SGR work and HCR to raise funds to pay the loans that we do have in regards to the construction of the SGR. So that was the directive to enable cargo move from the port through SGR to the Naivasha port. However, based on the feedback and the complaint from our county in Mombasa, the economy of Mombasa was indeed affected because a lot of container freight stations were closed down. A lot of people lost their jobs.
How bad was it?
It was really bad. It was really bad. If you have grown in Mombasa, like I have grown in Mombasa, and visiting Mombasa after a few years when this directive came into place, a lot of people have moved, a lot of businesses have moved out or closed down because the major economy of Mombasa was directly attached to the port. So if that business of the port of clearing of cargo is removed, then they do not have other options in terms of sustaining the economy. Now, this directive is going to have a couple of issues in terms of, one, competitive pricing.
Yes.
Now, it gives you an option. We are still waiting for the guidelines, but I believe it will give you an option if you want to use the SGR or if you want to use the transport. So, one, it will give us a competitive pricing between the trucks and SGR.
Yes.
Number two, of course, alternative. Number two, it will be good for the economy of Mombasa because now the businesses that were directly linked with port clearance will come back to life. It will be good for the transporters and the CFS, the container freight stations based in Mombasa. There are people who had invested in go downs in Mombasa.
Yes. There
are people who had invested in trucks in Mombasa.
Don't you think it should be done in a certain way that the port of the ICD and the port of Mombasa are almost at par, so that there is no complete transfer or reversal of the operations back to Mombasa?
Yes, actually, it should have been optional. The directive should not be, this is the only way you need to transport your cargo. It should have been optional. Give the people options. Then you weigh the option. That will create competitiveness and it will reduce the cost of transportation of goods. The other advantage would be port door delivery.
Yes.
Because now, once your cargo lands, your truck will pick it from the ship and directly to your door in terms of factory. But as it stands right now, because of the directive, we have what we call the last mile mechanism, where it lands at the ICD, then you organize for a truck to deliver it to you. Okay, there is an issue about time because it takes a short time to deliver by truck, by rail, but there is another lapse of time between the ICD, ICD Naivasha or ICD Embakasi to your respective factory. So that needs to be addressed. The disadvantages that I see is in terms of it's going to be a threat to the SGR. Of course, there is a loan that needs to be paid, and because of the loan, the government needs to find alternative of raising the funds. Number two, it may lead to port congestion if mechanisms are not put in place in regards to clearance of cargo. The dwell time of containers at the port of Mombasa will increase, again leading to congestion, because as it stands right now, the ship lands, they're put in the SGR and they're railed out of the port. So it reduces port congestions. So that needs to be addressed. The last point is we are currently paying government levy. So the question is, will that still apply?
Will that still apply?
Will we still be taxed the railway development levy for every import? Now that you have chosen an option, you have an option of not choosing the railway.
Okay.
Will that tax still be there?
Okay.
That's a question.
I want to come back and take your last round of closing remarks. Again,
yes.
We're taking a break after you. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Now we are almost coming to the tail end of this discussion, and before then, let's have Hamisi Mboga, who's been holding online for quite some time. Hamisi, we've had, that 360-degree coverage all the way from States to the UK and back to Nairobi. I don't know what is your take in terms of the issue of reversal, the issue of taking back the operations of port from Naivasha and Embakasi back to Mombasa as a governance expert. Hamisi.
Thank you very much. I think this is a good subject to be discussed, and it has a lot of implications. One thing we must also be told, maybe some of us don't have, what went to Naivasha? What was taken there? What cannot be done in Embakasi and what cannot be done at Mombasa? Those are the issues that can be discussed, and I think what was missed was participation of the stakeholders of these port operations. So we need to quickly go back there, and let's not do it in a hurry. Let's look at what are the pros and cons about the movement. What will happen if the port is the deep port? Actually, the place is not a port because the port is here. What are the functions that are there, and how can they be done based ways? And then there's the implication of the movement in terms of transport. What my friend said earlier was correct, because when we introduced that every container must be carried by SGR, then we should have really consulted, worked with people. What would be the implication of doing that? What would be the implication of those people employed by transporters that transported themselves and also the vehicles? The other implication is the roads. The road network was so congested one time. If you went to Nairobi by road, you would spare some more hours because you may not reach at the time that you think. What is the status of our roads, even if you bring the transport back? And then the other thing is there another alternative for the SGR if they is not transporting the cargo to Nairobi or even to Naivasha? Looking at the traffic of people moving from the town of Mombasa to Nairobi and others, there is always congestion in the train, in the bus. Can we increase passenger transport if you reduce the cargo? But also the state of the vehicles that they're transporting. There were so many accidents during that time before the SGR comes up, and also the speed and the time, like my friends have said. So yes, let's bring back those facilities, but let's address those issues that were making the transport system, they're making the business system, they're making people lose jobs. We address those very quickly, because if we address one and we leave the other, we shall still come back to them. Why don't we have a quick conference of how best can we transport our goods when they land in Mombasa? What goods go to Nairobi? What goods go to Naivasha? One time there was a paper to say we have a dry port at Boi. What happened to it? What would be the advantage of moving? The concept was to reduce the congestion from the port. The moment the ship lands, let's empty it, and then those containers that will go to up country, first stop should be Boi, where we have enough space so that they can be sorted out, so that we reduce the congestion in Mombasa. So there are so many issues when you're looking at this. And let's not do it very quickly. It may create, you solve one problem and you create another. But yes, employment should come back to be able to assist the people who used to benefit from it, and other alternative employment system must be also encouraged. People must be encouraged to buy heavy, well-equipped vehicles to be able to transport their goods. Because if my goods are going to Nyeri, you don't have to go to Naivasha. If my goods are in Nairobi, how are they moving from Nairobi to Nanyuki, where the owner of the goods are? All these are logistics that must be considered properly, stakeholders involved, agreement reached, and then we have to find a way. We don't have to force, and because we want to pay SGR. SGR, when it is planned, they must have been aware of saying, how are we going to pay for it? So let's encourage a dialogue and all these things, but I think it's a good idea to be able to bring the port back, port facility, port operations. And it's not the port, because some people are confusing. Somebody was telling me, my grandmother said, sasa hiyo maji mnapeleka Naivasha, tutakunywa nini? We're not sending the sea there. We're not sending the port there. It's some of the operations, especially on transport issues of the goods. So these are the things that must be done. So the president and his team must move very quickly. People are worried in Mombasa that all the time we have been here, and the residents around are not finding jobs, but we find our other colleagues from some other country finding jobs. You know, there are many issues. If you look at the local base, let's address this. For a long time, Kenya Ports Authority has not employed people for a long time. What is happening? So these are some of the issues that are coming here. People are anxious, especially in Mombasa. It was a promise by the president that things will come back. What things are coming back? How are they coming back? How will they benefit the local people? How many will benefit? These are some of the things that can be explained properly, so that if you don't get a job today, you know there's a possibility of getting a job. So you don't have to be in a hurry. This is an issue, and it has implications. And we are watching to advise. I don't know if I can, I had forgotten something about county governments. Can I clock it in here for half a minute?
Hamisi, thank you for your point. I'm afraid we are running out of time. That is Hamisi Mboga, governance expert, talking to us all the way from Mombasa. We'll have you back on the show soon, so please, thank you for that. Gentlemen, we are running out of time. I want to give you 1 minute each to maliza hii maneno. My director is already on the floor. Tafukuzwa. Starting with you, yes. Tobias, what's your final take?
My final take is that the president has what it takes to drive the country to where it needs to go. As a representative of the manufacturing sector, we would urge that he makes manufacturing a priority because it has the ability and possibility of creating employment and starting economic growth in this country. Lastly, I would also urge the president to put governance and accountability as a priority agenda. Based on the previous governments, we've had concerns, we've had failures, we've had opportunities. I would pray that this government will also put governance and accountability as a priority.
All right.
Otherwise, we wish them well.
Thank you so much. Edward, as your closing remarks, what would be how do you examine the presidency of up till the 2022-2027 from the strategic lens?
I think for me it is a period that the country needs to get itself out of the election mode and now focus on moving forward. We look forward to the reorganization of government and the various ways in which governments will work together at the county level and at the national level to ensure that we can be able to address the tight space that we are in, as a country economically. And finally, I'd like to also to see a situation whereby, there is dignity for all citizens. And that dignity is important when we are looking at how we as Kenyans will show up in our various spaces of work and in delivering our obligations as Africans, as Kenyans, as professionals.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. You're the first guest that we've had with the show in the new government, so you have all the blessings.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
So to speak, absolutely.
Yes.
I will be speaking to Tobias Alando, who is the acting CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We wish you all the best. You have got a lot of in the coming regime, as well as Edward Wanyonyi, who is International Development and Communication Strategy and an expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming over the show. All right, so later on in the morning, maybe toward the day, the president will be swearing in the 6 judges. Let me give you their names. We have got Agre Muchelule, Weldon Korir, George Odunga, Joel Ngugi, Evans Makori, and finally Elizabeth Omange. We'll be waiting to see how that will happen. We'll give you that live feed live from State House. But for now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Victor Lowe. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.